But when I'm in the zone, like I just go, I like get things done. And so I think being able to do that and kind of like turn off everything else and try to focus on a thing.
That was Jessica Scully, and this is episode number 187 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey there, how are you doing today? I'm so glad you joined me. I'm Marley McMillan, and I am with the blog Namely Marley. I'm also the host of the Chopped Podcast, where we talk about all things food blogging. I know things are really busy right now. It makes me really happy that you've chosen to listen to the Chopped Podcast as part of your busy days. But, you know, we could probably say being busy is just a common everyday practice for a food blogger all year round. But it's particularly busy during these holiday months when food bloggers are just basically on call, it seems like. So I'm really glad to be sharing this moment with you. And I also wanted to give you what I consider to be a super motivational quote to kind of get you through these rough days. It's by Tony Robbins. And the quote is, "Change your expectations for appreciation." I know I've talked a lot about using visualization exercises, but I just want to clarify that visualizing exercises are really important, but it can be kind of tricky if you start to visualize some grand outcome and then you begin to expect it to happen. That's kind of dangerous thinking, and it can lead to disappointment and frustration, and then this feeling like, I just want to quit because I'm never going to be good enough. I've been there, so I know how this goes. I'm speaking from experience. But I truly believe you can visualize yourself achieving the goals you have in mind, but you just have to visualize also the process of working hard to achieve that and finding the joy in working hard to achieve it. As I mentioned before, I really believe in what my tennis coach said, and that is you're visualizing pieces of the puzzle, and you don't have control over how the puzzle's put it together, and you don't have control over when it's put together. So just visualizing those goals and visualizing the work that you put into it is really powerful. But I think what's really important is like to detach from the outcomes of it. And instead of thinking of these expectations, like, why isn't this happening for me? To really change that mindset and to be appreciative of the moment, be appreciative of the journey that you're on and everything that you're learning. You know, it's easy to think, oh, why didn't I know this sooner? Why couldn't I have been further along than I am? But to just take a moment and to be very grateful for where you are. I always love going back to the episode with Allie of Give Me Some Oven, which she said back in episode 10 about appreciating your audience. Even if your audience is 2,000 page views a month and you aspire to be 1 million page views a month, you can still be very appreciative of the audience that you have today. So another example is even if you have 200 followers on Instagram and you want to have 10,000, again, rather than only thinking about the 10,000 where you want to be, taking a moment to be appreciative of where you're at. Like Ali said, go back and listen to episode 10 because it's very good. But what Ali said is, if you were speaking to an audience of 2,000 people or 200 people, you would be so inspired. You would be working hard on that presentation. You would be trying to think of all the ways that you could be the best speaker and really serve that audience. And that is the kind of mindset that can be very powerful. It's that appreciation of the moment that is really the secret ingredient. And I say this to you. I'm also reminding it to myself, just to be clarifying here. It's not always easy. The work is hard. And so it's easy to have these moments where you start to feel down. But if you can change that mindset and turn it into one of appreciation, it makes a big difference. Okay, on to today's guest. Today I'm talking with Jessica Scully. She's of the site Paleo Scaleo. Don't you just love that name? It's so cute. Let me just say, you are going to love today's discussion because Jessica is such an interesting person. Her background is really cool. And the way she started her food blog is really interesting. And just all the things that she has going on in her life. It's a diverse set of skills that she needs to get through her day. And so, just early on, we decided that we were going to be talking about productivity. And I love Jessica's approach to, she's kind of got a very analytical mindset, and she applies that to how she conducts her day. And I love how we talk about you got to be very careful and mindful when you go through your day because you can easily get to the end of the day and not have accomplished anything. Like we said, you can have 10 tabs open where you've started 10 things, but you didn't really finish anything. So she has a great system for keeping organized and staying on top of those projects that she's doing so that she's actually, getting to the end of the day and feeling like she's accomplished some things that she set out to do. If you're all into productivity and time management and project management and all of the above, we talk about a lot of it. And Jessica talks about some of her favorite tools and just the processes that she uses. It is a great conversation and it's just fun too. I really enjoyed it and I think you will too. So let's get straight to it. Here's today's featured discussion with Jessica Scully. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have on the show today Jessica Scully. She's with the site Paleoscalio. Welcome to the Chop Podcast, Jessica.
Thanks, Marley.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad to have you here. I'm looking forward to talking with you. I love to start with this question, and especially with your site is kind of unique as far as I'm concerned. So, what caused you to start your blog?
So I had no intention of starting a blog. My husband and I started changing the way that we were eating about 5 or 6 years ago at this point. And when we started doing that, I started kind of just playing around in the kitchen, making recipes, messing around with stuff. And he would say, "Did you write this down? Can we make it again?" I'm like, I don't have it. I just made it up. I didn't write anything down. He's like, "You have to start writing them down." So I started on and I'll reveal this because I feel like you have to honor where you came from, paleoscalio.wordpress.com, which was free and it's still out there if you want to go see how incredibly terrible it was. I never thought anyone else was going to look at it. It was just for me to write down the recipes I was making and have a place to go back and look at them so I could make them again.
Wow. So it's not even like I'll talk to some people who will say that they started their blog to share some of the recipes with their family, but you were just sharing them with yourself.
It was like a journal. Yeah. I was like, and I was writing like it was a blog post because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. But I would write it and then just write I literally use unordered lists and ordered lists like HTML to write my lists in my blog posts of my ingredients and my directions. So yeah, it was just for me to have as a reference of the things I was making when I first started
I
it.
love that. That's great. And where did you come up with the name Paleoscalio?
So paleo is a lot of people like to call it a diet. I have been eating like this for 6 years, so I don't consider it a diet. Diet implies to me that it is a temporary thing and it has an end to it.
Yes.
For us, it's just a lifestyle. It's the way that we eat. We discovered that we feel better this way. We have more energy, healthier. We both lost a bunch of weight. So it's just been kind of the way that we eat. I also own a CrossFit gym. I didn't own the gym at the time I started the blog, but I was doing CrossFit, and scaled in CrossFit world refers to a workout kind of being modified to fit you and doing what's best for you. So if you were to scale a workout in the gym, you're modifying it to make it the best fit for you that day. So
I did not know that. I've been thinking about this like, I'm curious what the scalio mean. Is it like the scale, like you're weighing yourself or
right? And in hindsight, I probably wouldn't have named it that, knowing that people would think that, but at the time it seemed like it made sense to me. And that it was, a good move. So I did it. So that's,
well, no, actually, I kind of like it because in some ways it's a playful use of the word scale. Like, in other words, even if people are thinking about it as a scale to weigh themselves, it's kind of like a paleoscalio. Like, you don't need to worry about weighing yourself. I kind of liked it.
Good. So it's just kind of the philosophy. My whole philosophy is just, you have to make the way that you eat, whether it be paleo or any other way, attainable. You have to make it scaled for your lifestyle because everybody, lives differently. And the only healthy way of eating that works for you is the one that you'll stick with. So.
Yes. And I also like that, in my, like, again, as I'm saying that I feel like paleoscalio has kind of a a fun side to it too, the name itself, and it implies that you're suggesting you need to have fun with your diet too,
Yeah.
or the way that you eat, your lifestyle, not
Yeah,
diet.
for sure.
Yes. I love that. So you were into CrossFit, but then you actually have your own gym now?
We do. We actually bought our home gym about a little over a year ago at this point. So we were members there for the 5 years before we bought it, and now we've owned it for a year. So
Wow. Do you
I
feel
run
like
the
in some
gym.
ways the change you made in your diet caused you to want to actually own this gym?
Um, I don't think it caused me to want to own it. But they both happened at the same time in terms of kind of
I
starting
see.
to work out that way and then starting to eat that way. They go hand in hand for a lot of people
Yes.
because they're just very complementary to each other, I guess you could
Right.
say.
Yeah.
And so, we just started working out there, and then I started coaching, and I came back from having my son, and the gym was just a little bit neglected, I guess you could say.
Yes.
And I approached the owner and just said, "Hey, is there anything I can do to help, kind of boost things back up?" And he said, "I've been meaning to talk to you about that." I had
Really?
we didn't really have any intention of buying the gym. Like that wasn't a plan, I guess you could say. But he approached us with it, and we took the leap. So here we are.
Wow. I'm just trying to think of the amazing changes that have gone in, you say the last 6 years, basically. That's a lot of change.
A lot, yeah,
A
yeah,
child,
a lot going
you
on.
know.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah, a lot going on. So
Yeah, a lot going on, but it all sounds very exciting too. Like, I mean, I don't know what you were doing before, if you were in an office environment or if you had a different job or whatever, but this all seems like it's exciting.
it is exciting. My background is that's a whole nother rabbit hole, but my background is actually in forensic psychology, and I spent 10 years working in police departments. So
Holy
totally
crap. Well, that's
unrelated.
kind of exciting. I mean, definitely very interesting work, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Forensic, say it again, forensic what? Pathology?
forensic psychology, psychology. So
Psychology.
like criminal psychology.
Okay, so okay, wow. So that would involve you probably like talking to people who are accused of a crime or maybe already convicted.
Sort of. I wasn't sworn. I was what's called a civilian working in the police department. So I
Okay.
worked in what's called crime analysis and criminal intelligence analysis. So doing a lot of reviewing of reports and kind of finding patterns, finding
Right.
commonalities, and then developing, kind of possible suspects who might be involved in these things. And then once I moved more into the
Wow.
criminal intelligence side, I was working more on gangs and gang members and kind of social networking and how all those people are all tied together. So
Okay, I just gotta say though, I mean,
totally unrelated to
I talked
food.
to no, it's like I talk to so many people who are so obsessed with these crime shows that I feel like
Yeah.
people are gonna listen to this and go, "Oh my god, that sounds like the best job ever."
Right. Like, will you stop talking about food and tell me all about the criminals?
Yeah, exactly. I all of a sudden don't even really care about the food blog. I really wanna
Right.
no, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. How
Not
do you go from
uncommon.
one super interesting career to another? That's pretty cool.
It wasn't like a straight jump. I mean, it was a
Yes.
progression. So the last police department I was at, there was some working for the government's hard.
Yeah.
And when you're somebody who's pretty independent and doesn't like to be told no, you probably don't fit there.
I just
So
wanna
there were some,
clarify that that's the case in every organization. It doesn't have to be about the government. It's like,
yeah,
you know, any company, and once it gets to be a certain size, they have to start creating these regulations and protocols, and then it's like you feel handcuffed, like I remember at my company, I just wanted to start a website for this project I was on, and they wouldn't let me, and I went out and did it myself, and then, of course, I got in trouble, and, it's just like,
right, right.
it's frustrating. I had to wait a year for a freaking website for my project.
Yeah. So it was no longer the right fit for me at that
Yes.
department, and there wasn't really any other department to go to, and so I just decided to move on. And I actually ended up with a job it was kind of just bridging the gap, kind of figuring out what I wanted to do next. And I ended up with a job at a software development company working in tech support. So it was more of like a customer service based role, but a lot of what I did was customer facing with um, the police departments because I was working both with the officers and with the public and things like that. So I kind of used that to transition into a customer service tech support role, and they used WordPress, and I taught myself
Oh,
WordPress.
so you
So then
learned a
I
lot about WordPress
combined,
there. Mm.
yeah, and I combined my crummy little paleoscalio.wordpress.com into an actual WordPress site, and learned kind of the entire background of how to use WordPress, what plugins were, how to manipulate everything. And I just took everything that I learned at that job and turned around and applied it to the thing I was doing with my food blog and just kept doing it. And that was how
Wow.
that kind of evolved. Yeah.
It's very, a lot of synchronicity there.
Yeah.
That's great. And I imagine the nice thing about a job like the one at the tech company is your hours probably were, you could kind of dictate your own hours too, maybe?
No, I mean, I had regular hours. It was, during business hours because the customers were calling in with, issues during business hours that we
Yeah.
had to help them resolve. And we had one swing shift that was like 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., but for the most part, it was just 8 to 5. Um,
Nice.
so
But that
yeah,
gave you time after work then to start applying
yeah,
the things that you knew about WordPress to your site.
yeah.
So I'm curious, did you always have an interest in cooking? Because I noticed on your site that you maybe did not like a lot of different foods at a younger age.
Yeah, no. Food was, well, I don't want to say food wasn't my friend. Junk food was my friend.
Yes, I feel
I
you.
remember my childhood was like Fruity Pebbles. Um, I remember those like little Debbie or Hostess, like little blueberry muffins in individual bags. Those are the kind of things I ate as a kid.
Yes, like I went to Greece when I was like 20, 21, maybe 22,
Uh-huh.
22. And I just hated any weird food, anything that I hated black olives. So I just like ended up like living on white bread, like the bread dinner rolls that they serve you. It's
Mhm.
like now I look back and I think, oh, you're so crazy. You should have eaten all that stuff. But
But when
I
I look
feel
like,
you.
yeah, in college, my freshman year, I remember freshman year, I used to have to go to the dining hall, and my kid you not, my dinner every night consisted of a bowl of Fruit Loops, a bowl of sliced tomatoes with ranch dressing and cheddar cheese, and a giant glass of chocolate milk. And now, if I ate that today, the only thing I would eat would be the tomatoes. Like nothing on that
Yes.
plate is anything that I eat anymore. So,
Not even the dressing.
well, I make my own ranch. It's homemade.
Yes.
So,
That fits the paleo diet.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's isn't that amazing transformation? Just like I actually hated tomatoes for the majority of my life. I just could not stand. I could like if somebody made a salad with a tomato on it, and I had to send it back. I had to have a whole new salad because I couldn't even have the seeds from the tomato on my
Touching.
salad.
Yeah,
But taste buds change, and I think
I do.
I find it surprising though that, when you're reaching this point where you want to make some changes to your diet that you're thinking, I'm going to go paleo because there's all these things that maybe you don't like as much.
Well, and it wasn't, oh, I'm going to go paleo. I was already, we had kind of already
I
evolved. I
see.
was already eating, more vegetables and a wider variety of things at that point. And then we just started eliminating things. It wasn't like I needed to
Yes.
add things. It was just I needed to eliminate things. And so we just went
Mm.
one by one. It wasn't like with paleo, there's no dairy, no grains, no soy, no beans. There's like a lot of things that you have to eliminate. And so we
Yes.
just went one by one, and we kind of ended up taking a circular route, but landing at the same spot and ending up paleo.
Nice. Yeah, I just think that's really great. I mean, did you love cooking before you went paleo? I mean, was this a part of your transition too?
I mean, I've always cooked. I think I used to make things that were easy,
Yes.
just for like lack of time and lack of knowledge. But I've just learned, it's kind of learn as you go. I'm one of those people who
Yeah.
just, if there's something I don't know how to do, I just figure it out.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know how to run a food blog. I'm just going to figure it out. I don't know how to cook a
Right.
dinner. I'm just going to figure it out. And I don't know that a lot of people think that way. I'm learning over time.
Yes, I think a
They
lot
just
of
say,
people
"Oh, I
really
don't know."
want. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like not knowing things. So
Yes.
I want to like learn as much as I can about all the
Yeah,
different
I
things.
love
And so
that.
that was kind of how my cooking evolved too, is just learning about the different ingredients and how to do things and how to make it taste good.
Yeah, I noticed on your site too that you talk about, I'm not here to convince you to do paleo or not to do paleo. Here, you're just basically saying, I'm not going to, there's a lot of other sites that will talk about the benefits of paleo. I'm here to talk to you about the recipes. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to know about the benefits of paleo, we can talk about them, but it's like everybody's everybody's body is different, and
Yes,
I don't think that food is a one size fits all game. Like I don't feel
I
like
agree.
paleo for the world and everyone will be healthy. It is effective for a number of reasons, but it's not necessarily for everyone. Anyone
Right.
can do it, which this is a saying they have in CrossFit. Anyone can do it, but it's not for everyone.
Oh, interesting. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, there are some people that just have certain conditions that impact their diet or what kind of exercise routines they can do. So, yeah.
Sure.
I feel like a lot of people want to say that everybody has to be on this diet or what. I really just don't. I don't get into that at all. I kind of feel like that's a warning sign for me. Like, stay away from that.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So, at what point when you started paleo scaleo and you're doing all that, was there a point when you realized like, oh wow, this is more than a hobby. This is something I could turn into, an actual business.
Actual business, no, I don't think there was like a trigger point where I'm like, oh, this is it. But I think, kind of going back to that, I don't like knowing things. And so I like just learning them and then implementing them. I, switched over to, off of the free WordPress.com site. I switched over to, the hosted site. And then I was like, okay, what do I do next? And I started looking into, I don't know if I started looking into how blogs make money or just kind of being in a bunch of food blogger groups and kind of soaking everything in. But I remember I applied with Google AdSense because Google AdSense is one of the first, like, there's no page minimums, there's no viewing, like, anybody can sign on and get on with Google AdSense. So I did. And I remember the first time I earned like $3 from ads, and I was like, whoa, like people will pay me for this. I mean, it
Yeah.
was only $3, but it was like I didn't do anything for that three. I mean, I worked, but
Right.
you know what I mean?
I didn't have that
Um,
$3 before. Now I have it.
right, right. More along the lines of, oh, this is what passive income looks like while I'm, you know, doing something
Yes.
else. So that I think really kind of what lit the fire under me. And then I started just digging into ads and ad networks and what do you need to get there? And, you know, some people may disagree with me, but, Mediavine is kind of the goal of where you want to be with your food
Yes.
blog for a lot of people.
Yep.
And they had, page view minimums and session minimums. And so I just set my sights on that. And I just learned and plugged away until I got there. And then I got accepted. And I was like, okay, we did it. What's next? So,
That's awesome. It is a great feeling, isn't it? When
yeah.
that's when you realize, wow, this really can make some decent money.
Yeah.
Whether it's, something that you want to contribute to your as a business, or even if it's just this is the money we're going to have for vacation every year or things like. I mean, there's a lot of different goals that people have in mind when they start their food blog. So
Yeah. I had no goals. I didn't
your
have
goal
any
was
food
just to
blog
make sure
goals.
you knew what to fix for dinner tomorrow night. Yeah.
My goal is to not have to write with a pen and paper. Like,
Yes.
so yeah.
So, but still, I imagine there were signs along the way, like, you're starting to get a lot more traffic, and I don't know about you, but like the first time that you realize, like, wow, somebody from Australia was on my site, that's just a great feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. People are actually seeing this. Like, I probably need
Yes.
to clean it up. Probably needs to look a little bit better than it looks right now.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second because, food photography is a thing that we often talk about for food blogs. What kind of, I don't know, do you have history of loving photography when you walked into this, or is food photography something that you had to learn as you went along?
No, you could go on my site. So there's a couple that are off the top of my head. I know the pumpkin smoothie because I just redid that one not too long ago. I'm trying to think of a couple others. There are some horrid, horrid pictures. I mean, things that look like I'm not gonna lie to you, like it looks like a cat threw up on a plate. And it's not because the food wasn't good. It was just I had no idea what I was doing. I was in overhead lighting in the dark in my kitchen, taking a picture of something that was not plated in a food styling manner. It was plated in a I'm going to sit down and eat this manner, and those are two very different things,
Oh, totally.
as I have learned. So, yeah, I mean, I was doing it with an iPhone 6 in the dark. um, they don't look great, but again, I'm a big fan of remembering where you came from and seeing how far you've come, and so I think it's a good refreshing reminder for myself that on the days that I'm feeling, man, I'm never going to get to that next step. It's like, okay, look at where you came from. Look how many steps you've already taken. Let's go back and look at these pictures, and you'll realize you're doing better. So
Yes.
I ended up buying a camera actually used off of someone, and then just taking a lot of, again, just doing a lot of research. If I don't know a thing, I want to learn how to do it. So I
Wow.
just started working on it, and it's by no means perfect. At this point, I still have a lot of room for improvement, but they, I think, look a lot better than they look now. People eat with their eyes, and if you
Yes.
don't have good pictures, it doesn't matter how good your recipes are, they're not going to click through.
Yes, I agree. And although I do think there can be, like talking about the word scaling, I can feel like you can spend too much time on the photos too. And so I think you got to find the right balance of, this is very pleasing to people. And if I could spend another 3 hours on that photo and it might please 5% more, but
Hmm.
I this is good. This is really a great photo, and it's going to do really well. I say this to you because this is something I've been working on too. It's like sometimes I'm comparing myself to other people who have these outstanding photos, and it's like I think I want to be there, and it's like who am I trying to please when I'm doing that?
Right.
you know?
Right. My focus right now is just publish it. Like,
Yes.
stop striving for perfection. If you wait for it to be perfect, you're going to be waiting another 10 years. Like, you're never going to publish. So, I'm going back now and I have all these drafts of posts that I've started, and no, it's not
Yes.
right, and no, it's no good. Just publish it. Right? Like,
Yes.
content, content, content is kind of the name of my game right now, is just get it out there. Nobody's certainly going to find it if it's not published,
That is
and you
so
could spend
true.
forever on it, and just the same with the pictures. You could spend forever editing those photos, or you could just say it's 95% of the way there. Let's run with it.
Yes, exactly. Because I think about I was in a band in college and we would spend 20 minutes working on this song with three chords and everybody would love it because it was just such a simple and then we would spend like hours practicing this really weird song that was hard to play and hard to sing and and then everybody would stand there and look at you like, what was that? Because it's not normal. It's not, so it's like I just think you gotta find that balance of what your audience wants and what seems to keep them happy, I guess.
Well, and the things that you see that are wrong with it, they're not going to see.
Yes, exactly. That's what I'm
Right?
talking
You're
about.
going to be so much more of a critic on yourself than anybody else is. I mean, we do that every day, right?
Yes.
I always say to my, so at the gym we offer nutrition coaching, and I always say to my nutrition coaching clients, I say, would you ever talk to anyone else the way you talk to yourself?
Oh,
And they're
that's
like,
so
no.
true.
I'm like, exactly.
Yes, I've been
So
so
don't.
so into mindset lately because I feel like that makes a huge difference in how you approach the work that you're doing.
Yeah. So I'd kind of look at that the same way I look at the food blog. It's like, how hard am I being on this from my perspective or from someone else's perspective? Like, are they
Yes.
going to see what I see, or are they going to see what they see?
Yes.
Right. And
Which
kind
is a
of
great
figuring out what
recipe.
that difference is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that you also have this balance between because I feel like sometimes food blogging can be sit in front of your computer all day long, but you've got this balance of like I have to go over to the gym because I'm managing that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times I'm standing behind the desk at the gym working on my food blog.
Yeah, Yeah, but think of the great fun environment you're
greeting
in.
people as they come in. Yeah. I'm like,
Yes.
hey, how's it going? Type, 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 type. So,
Well, the other thing too is that you're around people who are interested in that. Like, I think oftentimes we start a blog because we're passionate about a certain topic of food, like, maybe it's gluten free or maybe it's vegan or it's paleo or whatever. But then you're never around the people who are interested in that. So it's like, it's kind of cool that you're at a gym. There's people who are there trying to be fit. They talk to, you can talk to them about paleo and you can see their response. It just probably helps you with your writing.
yeah, absolutely. It
Ugh,
gives me good ideas too. What questions do people have? I mean, that's really
yes.
the thing is with the blog, answer the questions that people have.
Right. And you're right there in the thick
Yeah.
of it. So you know exactly what people are
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. I've also learned that people they don't know what you know. They don't know nearly as much as you give them credit for.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in an insulting way, but they just don't.
Right.
They don't, they don't know it. And so when they ask you a question, write down the answer.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I did a cooking demonstration once and I was just so surprised with how, like, people were like, that's how you cut a pepper or like a red pepper or whatever. It's like, to me, that's something that's so basic that I didn't think anybody would have a question about that.
Yeah. Yeah. My brother-in-law actually lived with us for a short period after he got out of college. He was living with my husband and I was like, hey, you want to help me cook dinner? He's like, sure. So I handed him a cutting board, a red bell pepper, and a knife. And he just looked at me with like this blank stare. And I was like, can you cut that up? And he's like, what's the best way to do it? And I'm like, he doesn't know how to cut up a bell pepper. Okay, teaching opportunity.
Yeah.
Here's how we cut up a bell pepper, right?
Yes.
But people just don't. You just assume people know things that they don't. That you just take for granted that you already know. You know.
Yes. So to put yourself in
So
position and opportunities where you can see people and the real questions that they have, I think that just makes you even a better blogger.
yeah.
Yeah. I
And
like
a lot of that has been right now, the people that I work with from the nutrition coaching side at the gym, the biggest struggle I hear is time. And I'm a little conflicted on the argument of time, right? I mean, work fills the space we give it. And we're all about as busy as we make up our minds to be, for sure. So you make time for what's important. And I think a lot of people don't want to make time to cook anymore. They want it to be easy and quick and fast.
Yeah.
And to some extent, you can't eat truly healthy and have convenient. You can't have convenient, cheap, and healthy all at once,
I like
right?
that.
Maybe pick two.
Oh, that's like that rule in
Um,
business, right? You can have it fast, cheap, or what was the other one? Fast, cheap,
um,
or inexpensive, or no, cheap and inexpensive are the same. So fast, cheap,
yeah,
and quality. You can have two
yeah,
of those three, but you
yeah.
can't have all three.
So there you go. Same
Yes.
thing. So I've just been trying to focus a lot on what can I do that's nutrient dense that gets these people the things that they should be eating without a lot of manual labor, right? I had a mom say to me yesterday, she's like, any time I spend in the kitchen is time away spent from my job, my husband, or my daughter. So I can't spend 3 hours in the kitchen prepping meal stuff. And for me, I think that time needs to be spent on you. You owe that to yourself to take care of the body that you have and your health. But other people don't see it that way. And so I'm trying to kind of meet them halfway and say, all right, well, here are some ways we can shortcut, right? Here are some things we can do. We can buy our zoodles pre-zoodled. You're going to pay a premium for that. There goes that cheap. Cheap's gone,
Yes.
right? But you can eat your zucchini noodles pre-cut and you can buy your, pre-riced cauliflower, and all of those things. So,
But that takes such a little amount of time. If you've got you can just make those zoodles so
well, but
easy.
if you're eating that way day in and day out,
Yeah.
and you have to prep every meal 3 meals a day because you're not eating prepared foods,
Right.
it gets time consuming.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've gotten to the point where it's kind of on autopilot for me. I can figure out how to juggle multiple things in the kitchen and keep like all the wheels and gears turning
Yes.
so that at the end of 2 hours I have a week's worth of food, but it took years to master.
And so now you're trying to teach other people how to do that too, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they want to do that, but just trying to teach them how to, still make healthy choices in the interest of time.
It's so funny because I can recall a lot of my earlier recipes, I I would have so many ingredients and so many steps, and that has been my big push is to, make things I think it just over time I realized, oh, people love the simple recipes, so I've had to really focus on keeping it simple.
Yeah, they want fast, they want easy, they want things that they have in their pantry,
Yes.
right? They don't want super complicated. They don't want to have to look at the recipe list and go, or the ingredient list and go, oh, I have to go to the store and get these 3 things
Yes.
before I can make this recipe. So,
Right.
and I have a couple of food bloggers that I follow that I love. I mean, their recipes are so flavorful and so delicious and so complicated, and they take so long to make.
Yes.
And I'm like maybe once in a while I'll do it, but they're big undertakings. So,
Right. Yes, I get that, and there are times I still enjoy being in the kitchen and making a complicated recipe, but for the most part, if I'm doing that, it's my goal in the back of my mind, I'm probably secretly thinking like, "How can I make this easier for if I was gonna share a recipe like this one on my site, how can I make it easier?"
100%. And I do that a lot of the times when I'm kind of developing recipes, I'm researching around, I'm kind of thinking about flavors and ideas and, what can I do to make this easier? What can I do to make it taste better, taste good, and also take less time?
Yes, because that's what people want, that they want those kinda go-to
Yep.
recipes that are fast and quick and yeah. But I'm curious, you were talking about time, and I'm just curious if we could talk a little bit about productivity because here's my big question to you is how do you do it all? You have it sounds like a young child, you've got a gym that you own, and you're doing a food blog. I'm just curious how you do it all.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly. Like some days I sit back and I'm like, wow. So my husband says that I have something called, he's like, are you in the zone
Ah,
right now? And when I'm in the zone, I'm usually in the kitchen or I'm like buzzing around the house, moving things around, cleaning, like flitting from thing to thing to thing to thing. But when I'm in the zone, like I just go, I like get things done. And so I think being able to do that and kind of like turn off everything else and try to focus on a thing. The biggest struggle I have with time management is when I almost have too many things to do that I don't know where to start and I don't know where to focus my time. And so I flit from, activity to activity, or I have 17 tabs open in my browser and I'm not closing any of them because I'm not completing any of the things in them. That's my biggest struggle. But my time has really evolved, I think, with the blog. When I first had my son, I was home with him and I was not really able to do much with the blog. And I let it go for a little while. I hired a VA who was not the right choice that I
mm,
found out later on, and I ended up losing money between paying her and the drop in traffic that I saw. So I let her go. And then I was like, I'm not really ready to give this up. This is not something I want to let go. I worked way too hard to get it to where it was, to just kind of watch it fall to the wayside. So I just kind of started diving back in again. And now my son is in school. So he's in preschool from 8 to 11:45 every morning. And then he naps from 1 to 2:30. So I am constantly moving. I am either taking him to school, sitting at my desk working, going to pick him up, feeding him lunch, putting him down for a nap. Sometimes I'm coaching classes at the gym. Sometimes I'm meeting with clients. Sometimes I'm on podcasts. So really just kind of like we were talking about before, living and dying by your calendar.
yes.
Anything that has like a set time goes on my calendar and I make it happen that day because it has to happen that day. And the things that are kind of the evolving projects, I keep in the back of my mind, but I use a tool called Trello.
Okay.
And I use Trello to just kind of track those different projects that I'm working on and help them progress through kind of a series of actions until they're done. So that's like my to-do list, basically.
So what I like about what I'm hearing about your schedule is that it sounds like you have these programmed periods where you basically have to get the work done in this 2-hour period or whatever while your son is at preschool. And I think that's really brilliant because it's like boom, you can get a lot of things done if you're like you say you're in the zone, you've got this time limit. I don't know, I feel like it's like planned productivity.
Yeah. And I do feel like, I mean, I think a lot of food bloggers, because they're at home and doing this on their own and they don't, and I had the same problem when you have an infinite, like I
Yes,
said before, work will expand to fill the space you give it.
right.
So when you have an infinite amount of time, it's like, oh, I'll do this and I'll do that. And like, I'll putter around the kitchen. Okay, maybe I'll publish that tomorrow because there's no deadline. And for me, just kind of saying like, you have to get this done today and you have to get it done by 11:30. Like you got to be out the door. Right.
Yes.
I think helps. And that's actually a new development. He just started school in August. So I'm really kind of still in the stage of managing that and figuring out what it looks like because it's not the same every day.
Right.
There's a couple days that I, have to coach a couple classes and down at the gym and back and forth. So it's really just what is each day. Each day is different, which I love, but I have to plan the night before what the day ahead looks like. Otherwise, it won't happen.
Exactly. I also like that you kind of gave yourself this opportunity to decide whether you wanted to continue with blogging or not. I've been in that spot many times where it's like, I think I'm tired of this. It's the thing is, food blogging is so all consuming. I seriously believe you could work on it 24/7 and still not be done. And so I think it can naturally lead to burnout. And so I'm glad that you gave yourself that time and then it made you think about it and go, yeah, I really do like this. I'm going to keep going.
Yeah. And I think I'm actually enjoying it more now than I was before I took a break, honestly.
Oh, that's great.
Um, it's refreshing, I think, to get back into it and remind myself like, you can do this. This is something that you're good at,
Yes.
right?
I
So
honestly think we would be better off. I keep toying in my mind with this idea of, like if it was a TV show, it can be very intense while you're filming and maybe promoting or whatever, but you have these breaks in a season. And I think I could see where if food bloggers could schedule maybe summers off because, summers are not a lot of traffic anyway. I just think it would be smart to have seasons to our blogging.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we should work on that.
Yeah. I'm not really good at taking time off, so there's that. But
It doesn't sound like it. So let's talk about Trello. Tell me a little bit more about how you use that to stay productive.
yeah, so with Trello, if you're not familiar with Trello, basically you have boards. So I have a board for the gym, a board for the blog, and a board for my personal life. And then you have like lists and cards. So you'll have a card with items on the card. So like a card might say, like I have projects. And the things that I need to get done are items on that list of projects. And then those items on the list you can drag and move around so I can reorder them in the order that they need to happen. You can put due dates on them. So the card can have a due date and it will turn red with a little clock and tell you when it's overdue. You can add comments, you can add Google Docs, attachments and photos and all sorts of things. So it just helps me stay on track, I think, and just kind of have one home base for everything. I'm like a list maker. I list make like you would not believe. There are like sticky notes and papers and grocery lists and everywhere, the whole house. And I'm like, I gotta find a way to put these all in one spot, right? Because things are falling through the cracks because I have this list of 3 things to do for the gym, 2 things to get from the grocery store, 1 thing to cook for dinner, and 2 things to do for the blog. And it's like, what? So just kind of being able to group them in like buckets with the things that they go with
Yes.
and saying, okay, today I'm working on the blog and I need to get this, this, and this done. Today I'm working on the gym. I need to get this, this, and this done. Okay, today I need to do maintenance work and I need to make some food to put in the refrigerator. And these are the things I'm going to make.
Nice.
So it kind of just helps me stay organized in that manner.
It sounds a little bit like a spreadsheet, but it's not, is it?
No, it's
Okay.
not. It's hard to explain without looking at it.
Can
But
you share it with other people so that they can be on task with your Trello as well?
let's see. Yeah, you just go to
Yeah.
Trello.com. It's free.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, you just go to Trello.com and you create an account, and then just kind of play with the boards and the lists and figure out what works for you. They have free stock photos, so you can make your background custom to whatever your current project is. So, like my gym one has weight plates on it. My food blog has vegetables on it as your
Yeah.
background.
That way
So,
you visually know which
but
one
it's
you're
more
dealing
of
with.
more
Yeah.
of yeah, it's more of to-do list and task
I
management, and
see.
you can collaborate with other people. So somebody else can have an account. They can If you add them to the board, they can collaborate they can see the lists, they can add comments, they can move things around, and it'll send you a notification. Marley has moved this card to this
Yeah.
list, or Marley has archived this to do
That's nice.
category. So
That's
Yeah.
great. And you mentioned earlier about your husband commenting that you were in the zone. Do you have some tricks that kind of helps you get into the zone? You know, like some people will listen to
Um,
music.
I would say, yeah, I would say just eliminating distraction.
Mm,
My biggest thing is my brain is like, I wanna work on a thing, and then while I'm working on it, it makes me think of something
yes.
else, and I just jump to it, and I'm like, "Wait, now I have 2 things that I'm doing, neither one is finished." So finding and I come back to Trello with that, jotting it down on a piece of paper, and then going into Trello and creating a card once I'm, freed up for that, transferring it in there and just putting it on the list versus kinda trying to do it all at once. So really just kind of saying like, "No, you are gonna work on this thing and this thing only until this thing is done."
I like that. So, for example, let's say you're updating an old post, and then you realize when you're updating that one, oh, it links to this other post. Oh, that one's even worse. It needs to be updated too. So instead of like letting yourself go down that rabbit hole, and like with me, oftentimes I'll find myself, I will immediately just go over to that other post and start updating that one. So, like you say, now I have two posts up, neither one getting completely updated or done. So what you're
Right,
saying is like put that on
right.
the list, stay focused on the one that you're working on, and get to that other one next.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah.
That's good, and that helps you stay focused, and then you feel like you're in the zone and, like, killing it.
And then at the end of the day, I'm like, "What did I do today?" And it's not, I started updating 5 posts,
Yes.
it's, I successfully updated 2 posts. Tomorrow, I have 3 more on my list.
Right. Oh, that's so smart. You can see how, though, it's so easy just to kinda, like you say, go down that rabbit hole where you're got 10 tabs open or 20 tabs open on Safari and, because all those things are not done yet.
Right,
And
right.
then that wears you down. I also wonder if the fact that you're working out on the regular, if that helps you get into the zone and be really focused.
I do think that helps just expend energy, I think, when I get overwhelmed because I have a lot going on,
Yes.
right? Like a 2-year-old managing a gym, running a food blog, still trying to like make all the food, but also create recipes, keep my family fed.
Yep.
Um, it's like a lot to juggle. And so for me, I think that's kind of my 1 hour a day to just, I don't want to say check out, but check out.
Yes.
I don't have to be mom. I don't have to be food blogger. I don't have to be gym owner. I don't have to be a cook. I don't have to be anything other than an athlete. I just work out,
Yes.
right? So that's, I think gets lets my brain have a minute to turn off, and then I think when it's time to focus, I'm better at focusing because I've taken that time for myself.
Oh, that's so smart. And I think it's an easy thing for us to say, okay, I don't have time to work out today. But in what I'm hearing you say is like, no, you really that's like some of the most important self-care that you can do.
Yeah, and I mean, again, work expands to fill the time you give it, right?
Yes.
If you put it on the schedule, I tell this to my members all the time because they say, "Oh, I was gonna come in to the 9 and then this happened, and then I was gonna come to the noon and this happened, and then I was gonna come to 4:30 and this happened, and then, I couldn't make it there yesterday." And then it's been a week and they haven't been in.
Uh-huh.
And I say, "Make it a meeting with yourself. Pretend it's a meeting with me. You wouldn't miss a meeting with me,
Right.
right? You would show up for the meeting with me. Make a meeting with yourself, put it on your calendar, and schedule your day around it. If you don't schedule your day around it, you're never going to make it happen.
Oh,
Put the oxygen mask on yourself first
yes.
and then go." Right? So,
I love that. That's great. What great advice to give to the people at your gym. And also, I just feel like I can hear it for myself as well. Cause it's just, like I say, it's easy to get into this mindset of thinking I have to do all the things, I have to do it all the time. And so, yeah, I love that. And I think in some ways, I mean, you may not recognize this yourself, but what I'm seeing in you is that focus that you have when you're working out is the same. I bet you it's very similar when you're in that zone. And it's like, you're basically training your mind that it's okay to be focused.
right, right. And I mean, your mind is a muscle just like anything else.
Yes.
You have to exercise it and you have to
Yep.
practice. I still every day am learning new ways to, kind of better manage things and find that balance and just kind of learning how to pivot and flex when I need to,
Yeah.
and change directions if I have to. But yeah, I mean, and I think the same thing applies for food as well with the like scheduling time for yourself. I mean, you can you can put off the food and the cooking and the taking care of yourself all day if you allow yourself to, or you can schedule it into your calendar, make it happen and plan around it.
Yes, I like that. We were just watching something yesterday on Netflix that talked about the benefit of physical activity. And she was saying that when you're learning something new, I could go into like if she was talking about prefrontal cortex or whatever. I don't really recall exactly. She had some big fancy word for what it was that you have a tendency, your mind slows down. It gets easily distracted. It has, you're learning something new. It's hard, except that when they do the same thing with athletes, they do a better job because if they're physically fit, then they can learn new things more easily. So basically what I got out of it. So don't quote me on any of that. I'll put a link in the show notes for anybody who wants to watch it for themselves. That's my synopsis of it. So I just think I love your mindset. You're just like, just do it, plan it into your day, make it happen, but also make sure you get that physical fitness in there too.
Yeah. Or just, whatever that looks like for you. Take the time for yourself.
Right. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yes. I mean, for me, I like to start my day, like if I can get to 5,000 steps early in the day, that really means a lot to me because it feels like my goal is anywhere from 8 to 10,000 steps a day. So I go for a walk early in the morning, I get my 5,000 steps in, and that way the rest of the day, I got that done. I'm done. I'm ready to move on.
Yeah. And you feel accomplished.
I do. And so I went through a phase where I wasn't doing my steps every day, and I realized that I wasn't feeling as good. I was hungrier all the time. And for me, it's like when I get my steps in, it just like sets my day to be the right way. I love that.
Yeah. I tell that to my 6 a.m., my members that come to 6 a.m. I'm like, this is the hardest thing you'll do all day. Like if you did this, you can do whatever you want all day and it's going to be a piece of cake.
Yes. Yeah, that's great. Cause you got it. You did it early in the morning. You got it. Yeah.
Right. It's done.
I love it. So do you, before we hit record, you were talking about a productivity book that you were reading. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So that's Getting Things Done by David Allen. My sister gave it to me and she's like, you need to read this. You need to read this. You need to read this. Because I'm like totally frazzled. I'm like, I got a food blog and I got a baby and I got a gym and I can't even figure out what to focus on. I don't know what to do. I'm like, so I'm just sitting here paralyzed doing nothing with all of the things. And I felt like, I couldn't really be present with my son because my brain was constantly running about all the things I should be doing, but then I wasn't getting those things done when I had the time to do them because I just felt overwhelmed all the time. Like there's got to be a way to manage this. And so she gave me this book and it sat on my nightstand for probably 2 months. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to read that. But I'm like, but I would have to take time away from trying to do things to read this book, which seems counterproductive. Yeah. But I finally just sucked it up and I read it. And it helped. I didn't, I pulled a few helpful nuggets out of it. I wouldn't say that I follow it to a T, but it was helpful. I cleaned out a lot of stuff. And that's kind of, I changed the way I use Trello to the way that we were just talking about, kind of dragging things across steps. So, projects and then like, what's my next action, moving things on. I have a little flow chart on a whiteboard that says, it's actually copied straight from the book. So he asks if a task takes 2 minutes or less, you should do it right now. If it's going to take more than 2 minutes, you have to make a decision. Do you need to delegate it to someone or do you need to defer it to do it later? And then it kind of goes from there and breaks down even further. But just kind of being able to look at each thing I have to do and saying, which of these 3 categories does it fit in? Is it 2 minutes? Do I need to delegate it or do I need to defer it? And then deciding, kind of how to move on from there. And then when it comes down to the tasks themselves, I think the best piece of advice that I got out of that is he always asks, what's the next action? Because I think a lot of times we can get wrapped up in, there's 15 things I need to do for this and I don't know where to start. And there has to be one thing that is the next thing you have to do before that project can move forward. It might be creating a pin for your food recipe. It might be editing the photos. It might be taking the photos. It might be trying the recipe. Whatever it is, there's one thing that you have to do before the whole thing can move forward. So when I get stuck or my brain gets stuck and I'm like, what am I going to do? I feel overwhelmed. I'm like, what's the next action?
Yes.
Right? What's the next step I need to take? And that usually can help me get unstuck and keep that project moving
I like
forward.
that because what if that next step is I need to get more information on how to create an email segment? Well, okay, so now I know what that task is and I can go find the best resource to learn about, email newsletters or whatever. That's great. Yes. But
Exactly.
otherwise, you're kind of just stuck in the mud. Like, I don't know what to do next. But if you kind of make yourself decide, well, what is the next thing I have to do on this project, it can help you move forward. Yeah. I love this. And it
Yes.
sounds like a big focus on the list. And as I was saying to you before, I find if I don't have a list in my day, that my day will be kind of like what I was saying to you earlier, where I'm just going from one thing to the next. I'm kind of meandering. And then I reach the end of the day and it's like, what did I just do? What happened today? Whereas if I have a list and I feel like I tackled it, I don't know.
Yeah.
It makes me feel really good about the day.
Yeah. I love the satisfying, like, crossing
Yes.
things off the list. So that's kinda what I always go for. I'm like, what's on here that I can just knock out and just draw this big black line through
Love it.
and say it's
Because,
done.
that's just like success too. Then like one thing leads to another. Like I just did those three things. Maybe they did take less than 2 minutes each, but I did those three things. They were on my list and I crossed them off. What else can I do?
And I have a tendency at the end of the day to be like, "Oh," just beat myself up. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't do anything today. I didn't get anything done. I didn't do this giant project or that giant project or, whatever it was that I had looming over my head." And then I go back and look at my list and I'm like, "Wait a second. You did, you marked 10
Yes.
things off your list today. You're doing fine. Like, don't beat
Exactly.
yourself up
But
over it."
but
So,
without the list, I think it could be easy to not recognize the 10 things that you did that day.
right, exactly. That's why I'm
Yes.
like, write it down.
So if you were talking to somebody today who was thinking about starting they're just telling you how they're thinking about starting their food blog, they're really passionate about it, they really want to do it. What would be the number one advice that you give them?
Oh, that's a really hard question. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say just know what you're getting into. I think it's very, very different as a business versus a hobby,
Right.
right? And if you want to start it as a business, you need to approach it as a business from the start. That's what I wish I knew. I didn't know where I was going with it, but had I known, I would have, you know, approached it probably a little bit with a little bit different
Yes.
mindset. So,
How would that be different?
well, I just would have done a lot of research, I think beforehand, done a lot more reading, done a lot more. I kind of just stumbled along as I went, fumbled, made mistakes, and figured it out and corrected it. And, now I go back and I look at the posts I have to update and
I
I'm like,
know.
oh my God, this is so bad. And I think everybody probably has that has a food blog.
Yes.
You're always ever evolving and ever learning and ever changing, but I just think I would have done some more research on the business side of things and how to approach it more like a business and manage it more like a business
Yes.
than a hobby.
I love that. That's great advice. Okay, I love to ask some fun questions at the end of the interview. Are you game?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
Pizza.
Pizza?
Pizza. Bread and cheese. I know it's not paleo.
I know, I was just, like, floored. I'm like, my jaw is on the floor, I gotta pick it up. What?
Scaleo. Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% paleo 100% of the time,
I
right? You
see.
have to give yourself a little bit of grace. We don't live in a world that where everywhere you go you can get something paleo.
Yes.
But I also just when I say scaling it to fit your lifestyle, like I don't have a gluten intolerance or a dairy intolerance. And for some people, those are real things and they, are forced to eat that way. I just eat this way because it makes me feel good
Yeah.
and it makes me have the most energy and, my body responds to it the best. But when there's, a day here and there that I want to eat pizza, I'm going to eat pizza.
And is it best when you
'Cause that's
fix
my
it at
favorite
home or do you
food.
go out?
It depends. Probably when I go out just because I don't have to cook and I don't have to do the dishes.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's
And I do
true.
make it at home. I mean, there's like some cauliflower pizza crust that Costco has. They're not perfectly paleo, but they're, gluten free. And so there's some different options out there, but nothing beats like a good gluteny, doughy
Oh,
pizza crust
it's so
with a lot of
true.
melted cheese.
Yes.
I usually feel terrible after I eat it,
Yeah.
but I do it anyway. Not emotionally, like physically, my body's like, oh,
I
what was
know.
that?
I feel the same way when I do. Like, I try not to eat gluten most of the time, and then, every now and then I want that, like you say, that there's nothing like a really good glutinous crust,
Yeah.
and I pay the price afterwards, but it's just so good. So yeah, I try not to
Yeah.
do that too often, but yeah, I feel you.
Yeah.
So what's a favorite app on your phone?
Um, I mean, Trello has an app, so
Really?
I use that a lot just to kind of because it's mobile responsive, so you can drag and drop stuff
Right there, yes.
across. Um, with all that. But I would say probably my Google Calendar. Again, I just live and die by that calendar.
Yes, that's great. And there's a lot you can do with your calendar, like put up reminders. There's just so much.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say recently that they actually even do reminders as with positivity notes. They schedule these notes that come up on their calendar from time to time that says "You got this" or whatever. I just thought that was really cool,
Oh, that's
isn't it?
nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that idea.
yeah.
I'm going to do that.
Okay, so do
Yeah.
you have any time for TV at all? And if you do, or reading, what's your favorite?
Yes. Well, do I have time for it? No. So my husband says, "Why do we watch TV shows? I feel like all you do is just sit on your computer and do your food blog." Like, well, I got to do two things at once. So I'm usually on the computer while we're watching television, like editing photos or, just doing something that I can do while watching a show, not like writing out thoughtful blog posts, but things that I can multitask with. So I do watch TV on occasion. I don't have any favorite shows necessarily. There's nothing that I like follow regularly. I don't think I have the time to keep up with anything that religiously, if you will. But we like to watch a lot of stuff on like Netflix and Amazon Prime and shows that come up. We really like Sneaky Pete.
Oh, I've watched that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the new season of Sneaky Pete just came out and we just finished that. So that's I think probably our most recent watch.
I'm surprised. I was halfway expecting you to say that you maybe watch some crime show. No?
Not really anymore. I used to.
Yeah.
When I was in that world, it was like all I did was watch, and I didn't watch like CSI. I would watch like documentaries on criminals.
Yes.
And I would read books about like people who went undercover, and it was like my whole life was just criminals.
Did you watch that show?
So,
was it HBO on How to Make a Murderer or something like that?
I did watch that.
So what do you think? Do you think he did it? You're the expert.
I'm not going to speak to that. I think the show was a little convoluted and elaborated.
You think they kind of puffed it up a little bit?
I think it was made for TV. I think that there's probably a lot we don't know.
I bet you're right. Okay, that's a good answer. I like that.
in any case, I will tell you in any case that you are watching like MSNBC or whatever it is you're watching where they're doing like a crime show, they are embellishing it for TV, and there is so much more that you don't know.
Oh, thank you for saying that. It's true. Yes. I mean, even these historical, it seems like even documentaries at times, like you got to be really careful about who the source of it is, because I think they change it. I don't know. It drives me crazy. I don't like when they change a historical story.
It's for entertainment value.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's for entertainment value. I mean, it's not about necessarily what exactly happened.
But, like with the
Titanic. You want the best TV show.
Okay.
You want the best TV show that will tell you like the back side of what goes on in a police department. Watch all 5 seasons of The Wire. Okay. That is a TV show that was on HBO. It ran for 5 seasons. It was intended to run for 5 seasons when they started it. They had an end plan, right? They had an exit strategy because they said they had a story to tell. Right. And they wanted to tell the story, and then they wanted to be done. Yeah. And I have never seen anything more accurate in terms of the politics and what goes on the back end of a police department and how it affects the community around it. Like, you want the truth? Watch The Wire. Okay. That's how it really is.
That's good advice. Okay. So how can people find you online?
My blog is at paleoscalio.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Pinterest.
As Paleoscalio?
Yeah.
I love it. And just to clarify for everybody, Scalio is spelled Scaleo.
Correct.
So Jessica, thanks for taking the time to talk with me today. I had a really good time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks to Jessica Scully for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. If you want to be in the know about all things food blogging, be sure to sign up for the Chopped Academy newsletter. Go to chopped.academy and then scroll to the bottom of the page and sign up for our newsletter today. Thanks to everyone for your support of the Chop Podcast. I've heard from so many of you lately, and I want you to know your positive feedback means a great deal to me. Just as food blogging is hard work, so is a podcast. It's a lot of hard work, but it's so worth it every single time I hear from one of you that this is making a difference in your career, in your passion, in your dreams. It really means a lot to me, and I'm so thrilled to hear from you. If you're loving today's discussion, take a screenshot and share it with me using #NamelyMarley or #ChoppedPodcast. I love hearing from you. You inspire me, and I hope today's show is helpful and inspirational to you as well. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.